Okay, Mr. Wallace, I have a few questions about your um, observation we had last week. Tell me about how you feel your lesson went.
I felt like the kids were in tune and they tried. I don't think they all got it because they're so low, but they're trying, and so I felt like we got them moving in the right direction.
Okay. So, what do you think went well in your lesson?
That the kids tried, that they were putting forth an effort. They asked questions, they were prepared to give it a shot, and they were actually trying to do the problems, which is a lot of improvement over what they did in this school year.
Yeah, I could tell they were very engaged. Um, what would you do, if anything, different if you did the same lesson over again next time? If you did, if you wanted to. Maybe you don't want to.
I would try to give the kids more opportunities to do questions. One thing I thought about doing was allowing them to share their answer as they're writing it on the butcher paper, share their answer with the class and explain it. That might help a little bit better with their retention if I gave them opportunity to share.
Okay. I noticed you had your objective on the board. Why do you think it's important to post your objectives and mention those objectives in your class with your students?
So the kids know what to expect. Kids like to know what they're supposed to do. If they know what they're supposed to do, they perform better.
Okay.
Or humans like to know what they're supposed to do, not necessarily kids.
I had your objective as I will review order of operations and dividing decimals and percent and proportion. And I know we're doing summer school, so it's kind of like you're doing a bunch of objectives in one classroom. So it can't be too easy. Do you think in the school year you might have more just one of those in a class period, or how did it work having those three different things in the same period? And again, I know we're in summer school right now.
I like the transition, going from one thing to the other, because an hour on dividing decimals, the kids shut down after about 15, 20
Right.
minutes. So I kind of, even though it's summer school, I like the 20-minute blocks that I was using for each of the different activities. Okay, we spent 20 minutes, let's put it away. And I've reviewed those same things the next day and the next day. So they've done like an hour on each of them, like a whole class on each of them. But it was done in 20-minute blocks where I felt that they were more engaged than if I switched it up. So I actually like doing it that way, especially for summer school in a review type course.
Okay.
In my regular classroom, my transitions aren't going to be from topic to topic. They're going to be more from activity to activity. Like we're going to take notes, then we're going to just do some discussion, then we're going to do some production. But I still like the idea of breaking the class up in 2020.
Okay, very good. Okay, I saw you use the butcher paper, and I thought it was an excellent idea. So my questions are, what made you decide to use the butcher paper? And also, what advantage does this, using the paper as a whole, provide over, as opposed to kids just writing on scratch paper? So
the idea on the butcher paper is I was going to try to have the kids, and I'm going to be doing this next week, is create rules for how to add integers. We were going to play with the manipulatives, and they were going to write the rules, and then they were going to hang it up, and they were going to discuss it. So I brought the butcher paper over for that. So then I'm sitting there with this butcher paper, and I'm watching, prepared for the lesson next week, and I'm watching the kids, trying to watch them do it, and I can't see it. It's like, this isn't going to work. So I gave them a big piece of butcher paper and said, write on this so that I can see it. And then it was like, oh, wow, I can see this. The kids have so much more room to write. And I know that with me, most of my math mistakes are by writing too small and misreading the number that I wrote. So by giving them more room, I'm hopefully eliminating that mistake. And I did one on the board today that they caught. I did a mistake. I made a 7 and I wrote it over here as a 2. And I was like, oh, wait, those are two different numbers.
well, I thought it was a great idea because I know for some students in math, they don't enjoy showing their work. They want to write the answer down. But using markers and having their friends, write with markers, I thought it was more engaging and more encouraging for them to use their scratch paper for showing their work. I thought it was a great idea. I did see one of the girls not using markers, and I couldn't understand why she didn't want to use markers. Are so cool, most everybody was like really into the whole marker thing. So
She's a very shy girl. She
Yeah.
may have been trying to hide it.
So maybe she didn't want you to see her work. But again, like you said, the advantage of if I'm over here with these students, I can look over there and see with the marker, what they're doing. So I thought it was a fabulous idea. Let's talk about the order of operations. That was the first part of your lesson. How are you able to recognize that students understood how to do the order of operations in the lesson?
By watching their problems when they were doing it. It's been a while since I've taught math. So I had to watch where they were making their mistakes to figure out what they were doing wrong and what they understood. So by having them do as many problems as I could pick up on what they were catching and what they weren't. I do know that the big one that I caught was they kept doing multiplication before division no matter what. And you're supposed to go from left to right. And I picked up on that because of the markers,
Right.
because of being able to see, okay, I see that mistake, and I was able to go to the board and do that again. While I'm actually presenting it, I don't have my setup here in summer school. I've started to use these popsicle sticks. So I ask a question. No, they're not supposed to answer, and I pull a stick, and that person's supposed to answer it. And that way they don't know if it's going to be them or not, so they have to answer the question before I pull the stick. And that's how I check for understanding in my regular class. But for 3 weeks, I didn't get popsicle sticks.
But I noticed that you did ask students questions by name. So I was going to ask that question. Why would you do this? Why is this advantageous to ask them by name as opposed to just asking random students?
I am being random when I'm doing that. By saying names, it's me trying to build a relationship with them. And I try to be random, where I asked every kid in the class at least one, which isn't really random, but they all got a turn.
Right.
Random, it may be the same person 3 times in a row,
But as opposed to some new teachers, they might just ask a question and let anybody answer. And the problem with that, as I'm sure you're aware of, is that you have the smartest kid always answering, or you have the one who wants to be most vocal answering,
Right.
and that leaves out the ones who either too shy to answer or who need to really be held accountable to answer. So
And that's where the popsicle sticks
Yeah.
came in, and that was me trying to do that. Yes,
No,
and
and
I'm trying to make sure
I saw
every
that.
kid
No,
answers.
I thought it was great. I saw you doing that. So, I also like the OOPS. I'd never seen it before. The order of operations. That was a good the acronym to remind the kids about that. Another thing I really thought, I've taught math for probably 3 or 4 years, and I've taught PEMDAS. I've never heard of the PEDMAS, where you switched it. But what a great idea! So where did you get? Is that your own thing, or where did you get that from? So just to help them.
Yeah.
So explain the PEMDAS and PEDMAS. Tell us.
Yeah. I made it up because I kept seeing that they were having problems. So I said, you know what, we can flip these. It doesn't matter which is the order. And I said PEDMAS. And I go, wait, that's what they do in China. I just threw that out there. And that's Chinese for order of operations, PEDMAS. And they're like, and I hope that sticks. I don't know if it
And have you seen in your short time this week them doing better with like not knowing that the multiplication division is kind of equal?
I've seen a couple.
The same.
I mean,
Okay.
I haven't seen it with all of them. Because there's been a lot of absences,
Yeah.
but I have seen it. Yes,
Okay.
I felt like they did catch that one.
Very good.
Hopefully, it sticks.
In your lesson that I had down here at 8:19, you asked a question to someone and you said specifically, why did you do 15 times 6 first? And I'm not sure who it was to. It might have been to Carly, I think, maybe. But I feel like you were trying to do some reverse psychology or something. Do you remember asking her that question?
I don't remember that question, but when I asked that, I'm trying to get them to tell me their thinking.
Yeah.
So that if it's right, the rest of the class hears it, and if it's wrong, I can correct it right then. And then other people who might be making that same mistake of, oh, I'm not supposed to do that first. So I don't know if she got it right or if she had it wrong. I don't remember. But that's giving them a chance to tell me their thinking. So I know what they're thinking, and it's not just a guess. And a lot of them, it is just a guess. And when I
Right.
figure that out, I can go on
Does she know why she's doing it, or is she just
guessing.
Trying
And so
to
it helps
guess.
me see why she made the mistake or why she's getting it right. And then I can go, and plus by her stating it out, someone else over here may be making the same mistake, and I can hear it.
is that a regular strategy that you would use in your class?
I do that all the time.
Okay.
I want them to explain why you answer. I don't like one.
Again, because they could guess and get it right, and you could go on teaching and go, oh, they know it. But Maybe they don't know.
They don't.
Just like on a test, you may
But
guess.
not everybody in the room knows it. So even if they get it right, I want them to explain it
Okay.
so that other people can. Because what was it? You learn better from your peers than you do from them, just because for whatever reason.
Okay. My next question, leading me in there, was at 8:23. I was thinking in your lesson when I was sitting here, I was thinking that Mr. Wallace is doing a great job, but he's talking, and I was like, are the kids going to talk? And the next second, you said you had your kids. I think you had them like teach each other what they were doing, like in the process of PIMDOS. Maybe they were explaining how they found the answer. They were going through the steps. So explain kind of me why were you doing that? Is that something that you like to use in your class?
Kids have a way of talking to each other that I can't. I mean, as much as I work on relationships, they can communicate better with each other. So if I can get student A understanding it and can teach it to student B, better. And I can go around the conversations and hear them, whether they're getting it or not. So I like that they teach better that way. Plus the 20-minute change, the transition that we talked about. If I talk for 25 minutes, I'm losing them. If I can do 15 or 20 and then give them 15 or 20 or so forth, or however we move around, that keeps them more engaged.
Yeah. And in your lesson, what I noticed is you had about 15, 20 minutes of an activity, and then you transition. And you transition in the right amount of time that your kids, they weren't bored, they weren't lackadaisical, they transitioned well, and they went to the next activity. So I thought your time was right on as far as your transitioning time. So, okay, so then you moved into dividing decimals, and you used this whirling octagons activity with the worksheet.
Yeah.
And what I noticed is you did something a little bit different here with the boys, because it seems in your lesson like the girls were really engaged, and I think the boys, need a little more help, I think, to stay engaged. And I saw you sit down next to them. Do you remember that, or what happened in that occurrence?
Okay, that happens a lot. If I have kids who aren't doing their work, or who are not participating, if I go sit by them, they start behaving better just because of proximity. But if I'm sitting down at their level, they feel more comfortable asking a question, or I think they do, because when I sit with them, they ask questions, and they'll ask us. So I go, okay, well, why are we having a problem? So I get more of a one-on-one when I'm sitting with them, and I have that opportunity. I don't like doing that too much. I love doing that. I don't like doing it too much because of classroom management. If I'm working too much with this person, that group I might lose. So it's harder to do that. The class you're in very small. I can do that a lot more. And I like doing it. I have to balance that between the classroom management.
Okay. I noticed also in your lesson, I think it was Carly, was she in the class? And I know she is pretty vocal, and she likes to ask a lot of questions. And sometimes students like that, they can take over the class as far as they like your attention and they like being, answering questions. How do you, as a teacher, kind of combat that and instead of just, you need to help her, but at the same time help others, how do you kind of more minimize that and keep your attention and focus on all of the students and not just someone who's constantly asking questions and really enjoys your class, obviously?
It's each child is different. It's getting to know them. With Carly, it's just promising her that I'm going to sit down and talk to her at the break.
Yeah.
Because she just wants to talk. So,
She's
I'll come sit down with you later and we'll have a conversation. I've had other students who just really don't understand and they want to know right then.
Yeah.
And how do I help them is partner them up with someone. And that way they're not dominating class. They have someone that can help them. And I can still get by and help them. It's not the whole class. So it just depends on the kid. Carly, she just wants the attention. I mean, she wants to learn. She likes the class, but she really, really wants attention.
Now, on the flip side, you get another young girl who was pretty shy and quiet and who needed a lot of help also, but didn't really seek out the help. So how do you differentiate your lesson and help someone like that? And really difficult because she's not even asking for help. She's almost trying to fly under the radar and kind of stay away from you. How do you work with that student and give them attention that they need? And maybe if they're shy, not, I don't know if embarrassed is the right word, but not make them get flustered and keep them where they should be.
Okay, that's the hard. This
Yeah.
particular student, the shy one, actually has an aide with her during the regular day.
Okay.
So coming to us now, we don't have aides at summer school. So she's struggling. She's
Yes.
really down. So with her, I have different goals. Okay, and so like when the other kids didn't have a calculator, she got a
Right,
calculator. And I'm like, I just want you to enter it in correctly. And I went by and checked. It's a relationship, especially with the really shy ones. If you can develop that relationship with them, it's a teasing relationship, if it's a fun relationship, it's whatever you can do that they feel comfortable with you, then they'll start asking you questions. 2 weeks, 3 weeks is not enough
Yeah.
to develop that with her to where she's like going to come to me and ask questions. In this class, in my summer school, half the kids in here, I've already developed a relationship because I had them. So they already come to me for questions. So it's been really good.
And it's also nice with smaller class size, so it's easier to talk to more students. I also want to add, I noticed that you had Corey sitting by this girl, and I think at one time you asked Corey to help her because you might have been over here with the boys or something. And so that was also something I saw that you were able to, even though you couldn't physically always give her your attention, it's kind of delegate to Corey, who's also good for her. So is that something that you would
I try to do
try
that
to do as
as
much
much
as you can?
when I have shy kids, I usually see who they work well with and try to get them partnered up with them as much as possible. Because if they have a good relationship, the problem with that is sometimes they become too dependent on that one child. So I have to kind of try to switch it around some, because that other child doesn't need to be taken care of them the whole time.
Okay, I kind of have a tough question for you here. So,
All right.
but I'm sure you can handle it. Okay. So I noticed towards the end of your lesson, you gave you gave the one girl a calculator, but towards the end you gave all the students calculators. And I know part of that was time, and they kind of probably got the concept that the time was running out. So with this technology, as a math teacher, how do you know when it's appropriate to give a technology like that? You know, I know it's a low tech, but to assist the students, but at the same time, still hold them accountable for their math knowledge. Does that make sense? You know?
When I gave them the calculator, we were doing percent proportion.
Right.
My goal on percent proportion was not dividing decimals. I've done that. We've moved on.
They already know that.
My goal, or they practice in it. My goal there was teaching them to use the percent proportion. And the activity I had answered 69.24673. And I did not want them spending time
Right.
on the division again. I wanted them working with the percent proportion. So by giving them the calculator, they were more working on the percent, not on the dividing decimals.
Right.
And that's why I gave them that one. How do I know when is the appropriate time?
It's kind of tough, isn't it?
It's tough. What I have to do is like, what do I want to accomplish today? Do I want them to practice with dividing decimals, or do I want to teach them percent? And you just have to guess and figure out and go. And it's been a while since I've taught math, so I hope I made the right decision.
I think it was good. I could tell that they already, more or less, most of them understood that, but that was not the focus of the lesson. It was to move on to the next part. Okay, so at the end, you brought in a real-world application. You asked about how might we use percent in real life, and I think the girl mentioned taxes. And I know your lesson was jam-packed, and I thought it was an excellent lesson. How else and how difficult is it, especially in math, to bring in real-world application throughout the lesson to maybe make it a little more meaningful?
Actually,
I know some of I know it was jam-packed.
Actually, math I think is easier to bring in than social studies, believe it or not.
Really? Okay.
Because math you use every day, whether you know you do or not, you use it every day. Social studies, when I'm teaching about the governments in China, they don't really care. And that may never, ever affect their life. So I try to tie it into our government. Well, here's what's happening there. Do you want that to happen here? And it's a little harder in social studies. Math, you use math everywhere you go. And I'm a math person. I think mathematically.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, it's easy to bring it in. Now, what's hard for me is to get it to their level of math. And that's why I don't teach math now, because I can't, I get frustrated with not being able to add. So, we're going to lose it.
I think see that green light there is still on.
Okay.
So I think it's okay. See, the red is showing it's I was
Okay.
making sure.
So we're good.
Sorry.
So with math, I got frustrated with going to the level, but it's hard for me to get them to see it. But my other class, they said, well, when I go to the store, the percent is used on at the end of my deal. They didn't say taxes, but they said at the end we add that percent.
Was it like sales tax?
Sales
Is that what it
tax.
was?
Yes, they did sales tax in one class, and another one had a basketball game. You know, Steph Curry shoots 52% on three.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't hear that. Okay.
And so, but that was a different class you went in.
Oh, okay, okay.
That was the third period class.
Right.
So I had different answers all day, and I was kind of hoping for the basketball one because that's my.
It's interesting because as a sports fan, I'm not even thinking about it right now, but when I think about like baseball averages or free throw percentage or, I do math and I don't even realize it. And I wonder if our kids are the same way. They do math and I don't even realize I'm doing math, last night watching LeBron James and they were showing the percentage shooting, it's interesting, very interesting. So, and of course, people, that's their job is to do stats for basketball or baseball.
I know a kid that got a full scholarship to keep stats for a college basketball team.
Yeah. So
that's all they did.
And Vegas looks at stats too. That's how they do their.
They're a little further. I'm not going to tell them that. I don't want to introduce
No.
gambling.
No. I'm just.
I'll let their real math teacher do that.
Okay. You're doing great. A few more questions here to ask you. Is there any other way you could think of to encourage your students to talk more? I know you had them coaching a little bit on the questions. Anything else you could think of?
The rewards, I try to pat them on the back when they do a good job, give them 5. If someone has a really good explanation, let them share it with the class if I can get to it or if I have time. One of my favorite things to do is call on someone and tell me, what did your partner say?
Yes.
I love doing that because they have to remember what the partner said, but when they say it, the partner didn't have to say it.
Right.
They don't, if they're wrong, it's not their fault. So they're more apt to say it, and the partner's proud whenever I'm able to say that. And you could, when I say, well, that was a great answer, and you can see them stand up. So that's the only, I try to do positive verbal praise. Sometimes I'll sneak by and go, hey, you're doing a great job working together, and drop a Jolly Rancher on their desk. But as far as encouraging them to speak out, they have to be safe. They make sure there's no ridicule.
Yeah.
And they have to feel like they're doing a good job, I'm happy. So.
Well, like you said about having your partner answer for what you discussed. There's actually a training I went to. It wasn't that while ago. We did that, and once the teacher did that one time, I was like you said, I was like, oh, I really got to pay attention to my partner because they're going to ask me what they said, not what I did. And so that is a great strategy to enforce. Okay. I noticed the way it was situated, you had girls over here and boys over here. Was that your design, or is that just how did that kind of transpire?
That's their design.
Okay.
That goes to the comfortable in the classroom. If I let the kids choose where they sit, they are more comfortable. If I put them next to someone that I don't know, because I don't know them when I put them in here.
Right.
If I put them next to somebody that they hate, it's an uncomfortable situation and they're not going to want to learn. One of my long-term strategies with that is when you sit by someone, if you're not getting your work done, is this the best place for you to sit? A teacher will come and move you. So if I'm a math teacher as a STAR test, I'm going to move you. If you're not getting your work done, I'm sorry you had the chance, now I'm going to move you. As a social studies teacher, which I don't have a STAR test, I'm able to say, are you making the best decision? And I get to have that conversation with them because I have time.
Right.
Because, and this is mostly with boys because I'm seeing them the next couple of years in football. You're not going to pass if you don't figure out what you're supposed to do in class. And I have 6th grade, so it's a fun class. I get a lot of things I get to do in there.
Well, I had a really hard time finding anything negative with your lesson. If I was to give you any advice at all, I might have said, when I noticed the boys, they were sitting over here and their backs were to the wall. And the girls had a much easier time staying engaged. The boys were a little more work, I would say. And so I was just curious, was there a reason why they were sitting not facing the wall, the backboard, the whiteboard, the basketball? Was that just where they were sitting, or was that something that you thought about moving on this side?
I thought about that. And putting them facing each other reminds me that they need to work more than I need to talk. Is what I'm trying to get. They need to be doing the problems more than I need to be. They need to be watching me do the problems.
Okay.
So by having them sit this way, it's just kind of saying, Robbie, shut up. It's time for them to do something.
Okay.
But I do need
No,
to
that's
move-
it. That's a good reason.
but I do need to. I was working on maybe can I make them turn their chair? Can I
Yeah.
make them do this? I mean, I've been trying to come up with that, and it's 3
Well,
weeks.
that's a good answer.
So I want to shut. I need to shut up. It needs to be them.
And then also them sitting over here and the girls over here. Was that to kind of keep them separate, or that was their own
That
design?
was all them. Where
Okay.
they sit is them
Okay.
until they prove that they can't make that
Okay.
choice.
I understand.
And I let them move anytime they want. Rephrase that. Once I know their names, I let them move wherever they want because I do a seating chart for the first week of school. They sat, I write it, and then when I start learning your names, and then when a sub's there, they got to go back to the seating chart.
One thing I was a little concerned about was, could these boys over here see the board? I was sitting over here where the girls were, and I saw the board great. But you're like me, you're kind of a tall guy, and we kind of blocked the whiteboard, and I wasn't sure if they could see it as well. And I think, are you left
I'm
handed?
writing, so they're going to see it better. But I've gotten to I turn sideways
Okay.
like that. I've
Yeah.
learned to write backwards.
And there's no perfect sitting chart. I just wanted you to be aware of that in the future, and everything was right on. Okay, last question here. Technology-wise, use the calculators, and I know it was jam-packed. Is there any other technology that, if you just listen again, that you might think about that would work well with this lesson? You're already using the butcher paper. You're already using the markers and the calculators. Anything else that?
I haven't been teaching math in a while, so that's where the new technology.
And that's kind of hard.
I
when you're-
don't know what's
social
out there
studies.
for me. I do try to use technology a lot more in social studies, trying to incorporate it. For teaching dividing decimals, they really don't get, if I were introducing the concept, I'm sure there's something I can find to help with that process. But they have to be able to do it by hand because on the STAR test, they do not get a calculator, do not get anything. They have to do the division themselves. So
Right.
to introduce it, to get them to understand it, there might be something out there I don't know about it. But with review, I think they have to just do it.
And that kind of goes back to using technology to enhance their learning, not to substitute it so much. And you still want them to be able to do the math, but use it to enhance their learning. So, okay. That's all my questions I have. I thought it was an excellent lesson. I thought the students were engaged. I thought that you did a great job of you talking, letting the students talk. And again, your transitions were great. If there was a way to get the students, like you had the shy girl to talk more, I think you encouraged that. So I thought overall it was a great lesson. I appreciate you letting me come and watch you. And I will see if you have any questions, but I doubt you have any questions for me. So thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it. You did a great job.